Hey team, welcome back to another great episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader Podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and today I am very excited to be joined by Margaret Oldham with AgLaunch. Margaret, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Mark. It's been nice to get reacquainted. We worked together a while back, and now it's nice to
Yeah,
see you again today.
yeah, absolutely. It's been, probably 10 years
Yeah,
actually.
that was
But
pretty young.
it was kind of fun. We almost talked for too long. We're like, oh, we better start recording so we can make a show
Yeah,
here today. But Margaret, you get the same opening question everybody gets. What does it mean for you to be intentional?
yeah. So intentionality is the very word defines what it is, right? Like, but I think of it as being thoughtful, like really putting some thought into you know what we want to do, what our direction is, etc., and then focused. So you've got the thought, you've got the intent behind what you want to accomplish, but then having focused activity to deliver that. And I also think that a part of it for me in being intentional is really the motivation behind it. Being having a pure motivation of wanting people to succeed and thrive.
Yeah.
And you can't do that just off the cuff. So,
So true. So true. I think that's one of the big things that people get challenged with. I say it a lot on the show, and I have to keep repeating it because the behavior has not changed enough.
yeah,
And one of the reasons we make this show is to help the industry just be more intentional with their leadership. And it's the opening word you said, which is thoughtful. And I think, well, what does it require to be thoughtful? Well, thoughtful means that you actually take time to think.
exactly.
We have a lot of people not taking time. And by the way, I mean, I find this at our Thriving Leader program all the time, and other programs for that matter. People actually feel guilty taking time to think.
Yeah.
They
Well,
not one.
what's that?
It's often it's almost like we have this thought in the back of our mind, like if people see me sitting and thinking,
Yeah.
not being
Right.
busy,
I'm
not
not
doing.
doing anything. Yeah. I think I was just kind of reflecting. I think for me, a lot of my thought thoughtfulness comes from moments of time. I know we were talking about faith earlier, and I learned a long time ago that I had to pray at stoplights. I had to pray, like those moments where you've got just a minute and something crosses through your thoughts, and how does that build in? And I'm always connecting dots, like something I see in my normal life at a soccer field or a baseball field applies to something that I'm doing in work or how I'm working with farmers or with our team. And so I think it's just being really aware and again, like connecting dots and not separating my life. It's all interwoven, and there's so many things that overlap. And what I've learned in business, I can often use in my family, so it's a two-way street there.
Yep, yep, and vice versa. Yeah, we talk a lot about that because it really is this idea when we don't even really like the words work life balance because there is no it's all integrated. It's like, well, I wasn't a different person when I went to work today than I am when I come home at 5, 6, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Still Mark. Yeah. So, just the difference is like, sometimes there's things on my mind, right? Maybe you feel a little bit more today. And so we have to learn, what are those thoughtful end of day rituals to be able to kind of close out the day so
Yeah.
that I can be a little bit more present. But man, so you guys, Margaret is the VP of Innovation for AgLaunch, which I think is a really unique company. I've had this one on my radar for a long time to have Margaret on here to talk about this because I had a relationship with her, and I want to talk a little bit about your guys' company a little bit more so probably than we do some others because it is really really
Yeah.
unique. You guys are really behind helping get behind a lot of innovation that's happening in ag right now. So give us a little, 30, well, let's go 15 to 20,000 foot overview, if you would, Margaret, and help us understand
Absolutely.
ag launch.
Yeah. So AgLaunch is a nationwide network of farmers. We're a farmer-centric organization, basically a nonprofit group that is funded by many grants, and we work to drive innovation in agriculture through our farmer network. And so our farmers help select the startups that we'll work with, so any technologies that they might be interested in. They mentor those founders. If they trial those technologies and give feedback and input. And they also get equity in them. And so that's the really cool thing, I think, is that gives farmers an ownership position in the startup. And what that means, when you own something, when you own a part of something, you just have a different feeling about the future of that, and you're invested in the development of that and the success of it. So we're centered in the Memphis, Tennessee area, so the Mid-South Delta region, but we have clusters, if you will. One's up in Oregon, one's in Iowa, another over in the Appalachian area. And so these are areas where we've got partners that are helping us really fulfill this vision and bringing farmers in. We've got about 50 farmers from 12 states today that are actively involved. The farmers are innovators. So, they're the people that are willing to take something that isn't even fully baked yet and figure it out and determine if this is going to work, figure out how to make it work, what value does it bring to the farm. And we're very focused on farm-driven innovation too, by the way. There's a lot of innovation happening, throughout the industry that's not on the farm, but our focus is with the farmer. And so with that in mind, these 5 regional hubs, if you will, and 12 states, 50 farmers, and we're growing that every day. We have brought in about 40 startups. So 40 entrepreneurs were selected by our farmers over the last 8 years, I think it is, maybe 9. And so we're building that portfolio, and we actually just had our first event where farmers got a check from one of the startups that they helped. It's a shared risk and reward program, and so we have the company was Calimo. It's an Argentinian irrigation company, and they had an event where we were able to cash out or realize our return. And so it was a 5x return for our farmers. We had 4 or 5 farmers who actually did the on-farm trials with Calimo for 2 years. And then there was another 40 or so in the LLC, but all farmers got a check. The farmers who did the actual work got a bigger check, but all farmers got a check based on how they work to support the efforts of innovation in our portfolio. So
that's really cool.
I'll let
you. They were in it from the beginning, from the moment that you guys started working with that particular company and help test it, give feedback, trial it again and again, and then I assume that company probably got acquired or got an investment, and then that was
right.
And they were able to get paid out. Very cool.
Triggering event. Yep. And so like I said, we've got about 40 more. Now they're not all going to make it. That's just the risk you take when you are working with really early stage startups. We like for them to have a proof of concept or minimal viable product that we can at least get on the farm, because that's where the farmers can really start to provide value. But we're not at that point where so many startups want to come to us when they think they're ready to sell the product. And often our farmers can show them that they're really not ready to sell. So.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we've done sales training and coaching on a few organizations that thought they were ready to go sell. And
yeah, happens, right?
We're like, okay, well, what's your offer? Like, what do you mean? Let's go. Bless your heart. Let's start from that, right?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Wow. Well, that's really cool. What as you look in these startup organizations, certainly, I know we have a lot of them that listen to the show that are maybe in the biological space right now, or
right,
agtech space, or wherever. I mean, there's a lot of startups in and around the industry. Probably some of them come through a bit of a rough moment here at this point in time. Don't worry, guys, that will cycle, and it always does, right? But I'm curious, what are as we think about intentional leadership being in a startup, you're getting to look across a pretty broad audience of those. What what would you advise a startup founder or a startup team, leaders within that, in terms of like being intentional with their growth, with their teams? I'll let you take that whichever way you want to go with it, Margaret.
Yeah. Well, so often early on, it's one person, right? Maybe two. And their biggest desire is to get more people on board. And so it's really important to be intentional on that aspect. Human resources are one of the most expensive inputs that a company will have, right? And so often I've seen startups bring in their college roommate or their buddy, and then winds up not being a great fit. So I think it's so critical to bring intentionality to that level of leadership, even in a startup phase. So making the right decision on when to bring people in, looking at the different models to bring people in. And what I mean by that is it contract? Is it short-term, employment agreement or full-time employment? What does that all look like? And because there are consequences either way. But so often the startup entrepreneur founder doesn't have the bandwidth to really train someone, or so they need someone who's somewhat independent, who's got some level of background in the business, etc. So it is not a decision to take lightly, but at any rate, it's really an important decision for founders to make, just as it is within a large company. When I've worked with, I think I mentioned to you, I'm Legacy Syngenta and Legacy BASF. When I worked in those large organizations, it was a very carefully thought out program on who you promoted, who you brought into leadership positions, when you might add people, and startups should do the same thing.
Absolutely. So I think back to around 2014, 15, our business. I started in 2013, and we landed our first multi 5-figure accounts, a 6-figure account. All of a sudden, it's like, man, it's like I feel the weight. I have more work than I can handle. I remember I was doing coaching calls from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Wow.
With no breaks. And we now know actually it's not even healthy for our coaches to do that. Our max workload is 12 hours of coaching per week.
Wow.
For a coach. They can do other things, but they can't do more because we lose the efficacy. Like they're just not good after a certain amount of time. So anyway, I was doing this every day. And so I finally, I remember hiring just like an assistant who could help with the scheduling, and then that released enough time where it triggered like the next several $100,000 in revenue.
Exactly.
Right. And so now it's like, okay, now we're really rolling. But then I had to get people around me and I had really, the good Lord sent me like just the best possible people at that time. Like I got lucky. Yeah. Right. And I ended up getting surrounded with really incredible people that helped us go to the next level. And that carried us through till about 2020. But it's so and then we went backwards. Now we're doing it again now, right? And building, trying to build back. And so we're getting to that point where it's like, we're sometime this year, we're going to make that next hire. And we're really sitting back and paying close attention right now to what are the aspects of the business that need the biggest amount of attention, and then fully knowing ourselves as founders, because Christine and I, as co-founders of the Momentum Company, are both visionary.
Yeah,
we're not doers. We're not big detail people, right? And so we're out here trying to lead and probably frustrating the heck out of our current team because,
right.
Big idea every day. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about this? What do you think? And I have to follow up my messages now with, hey, what do you think about this? With, I don't need you to take action on this right now. I just needed somewhere to put my idea.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So I've always been one of those people that, if I buy into the vision and I believe, believe that same vision, then I'm that person who can get it done. Like I can help take that vision. And so in our current environment, Pete Nelson is our president at AgLaunch and is the founder visionary for this model where farmers do get a piece of the ownership in the success of entrepreneurship. And, but he often talks and thinks about things that are farther down the pipeline. And I lead a team that has to get it done today. And that is implementing all those steps that are bringing the success that will lead us to that, pathway of the vision. So it takes all kinds to make things successful.
It does, and I think from a leadership perspective, an intentional leadership perspective, part of our definition of intention is being deliberate.
Yeah,
So, really understanding yourself and getting yourself. My coaches call it wise counsel. So, who are the wise counsel that surround you that help you to make those decisions? Which I think there's obviously, I'm sure there's some value in what AgLaunch does to provide these founders with wise counsel. Because if you
absolutely.
like, you're highly likely to go find you're so buried and deep in the day to day that you're just looking for a warm body to take something off your list.
Right,
And
right.
often, you have those people in your organization, and then, but they don't like, they're not the ones who can take you to that next level, right? They were good for that season or for that day, but they
Yeah.
may, and then, now you kind of got to walk it back, and it makes
Mhm.
it's much more challenging. So you're right; it's better to be deliberate up front.
Yeah. One of the things that I have found is so critical in this type of environment that we work in. Change is constant, right? Like it is not is something going to change? It is constant change. And like I said, I'm leading the team that gets it done. So we're kind of driven by process and the steps that it takes to get things done. And I will often say we have our process, and my boss will say, "Oh, but we can change all that." That's true. But if we want the product, to be at this quality, there are some things that we want to tweak and change a little bit. But there are some core things that we have determined are really critical. And so what I've found as a leader leading in this environment, right? Like sometimes I feel like the proverbial cream stuffing in an Oreo, where I'm, between the two hard places, the hard cookies.
Yeah.
But I find that if I am in sync with the visionary, so I'm in sync with the visionary and understand what our deliverable is, I
Mm-hmm.
understand the capacity of our team and can give clear direction and really help support them in a dynamic environment, um, and just have open and honest communication throughout the process, we're going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very rewarding. It can be really trying at times, um, and yet I find it to be so rewarding.
Yeah, so good. I want to just break that down even a little bit further. So if you are, let's talk to the person who is you in an organization. So you're dealing with it, and maybe it's not even a startup, right? It could just be a
Yeah.
team that you're on, or large organization, small company, co-op, doesn't matter. But you got somebody like you're the person who's boots on the ground, making stuff happen in that operational capacity, day to day, and you're getting direction sort of from a leader somewhere
Yeah.
up the chain, right? What would you advise someone, who definitely sees how to make things happen? You're the one who can see the details that other people can't see. You're the one
Yeah.
who kind of knows more of like you're closer maybe to the implementation,
Mhm.
right? But you're taking direction from someone who just has the vision.
Yeah.
What would you advise someone in that role to be better, more comfortable, and probably be able to work through the conflict? Because I know firsthand the conflict that arises between the visionary and their operator.
Right, right. There are a lot of us out there in this kind of role, right? Because everybody can't be the visionary. And we can't all do all the work that has to be done. So there are a lot of us in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's been really critical to take time to ask questions and clearly understand what that vision is. And if there are some non negotiables in that, like what the expectations are around the deliverables and how it's done, if there are some non negotiables, I need to know that. If there are things that are like, I don't care how you get to this point, but I just want us to get to this point, then that's important for me to know too, because that's where the flexibility comes in. And I think people, what we have benefited from, and what I think I would advise someone to do, is to make sure there is as much alignment as possible around that vision. So they need to understand the why. What is the why? Why are we doing this? And, in the organizations that I've worked in where people understand the why, there is great alignment and people will do extraordinary things
Yeah.
if they understand the why. So the person in the middle, like me, You got to understand that visionary. You got to understand, you got to have enough time to really dig in, ask the questions, and keep them informed. Like I am often saying to my boss, look, I know where you want to go and we are going to get there, but
Yeah.
we have to take this step first. We have to take this step. We've got to implement it this way this year. And then next year, we're going to be able to add on and we're going to get closer to where you want us to be. And so that communication, and I almost to a fault, try to represent my team and protect my team, and throughout this, like I want them to know as much as I know. So transparency and communication. But then, so that's like, how do you extract what needs to be done and get that vision and then communicate about that? And then the second part of that is like, how do you then lead your team, right? How do you do that? So I have learned that anytime I can, I give I get out of the way. So I've started this quick chat where my team can just have a quick chat with the leader who can share the vision. And so they hear it's not just coming from Margaret. She's implementing what's there. I think then that transparent, open, honest communication flow is critical. You're part of that.
Yeah.
And that means sometimes you're saying, look, we really don't know. We don't have this figured out right now, but we need your input. We need you to help implement what we know today. And really, appealing to that buy-in, appealing to help us do this.
Mm-hmm.
There are times I know, when I was working for those ag chem companies, and we had huge sales goals, right? And like, how are we going to get this and be in the relationships we have with our farmers, and how we're going to make this happen?
Yeah.
And there were times where it was just like, how can we do this? And everybody chipping in. Well, I think I could make this and I could do that. So getting that buy-in and that ownership for the outcome,
Mm-hmm.
not just the process, is really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that just being able to ask the questions, you're bringing up a really important point. Like, how are we going to do this? Right.
Yeah.
Not who can take this off my plate, but, sitting down as a team and have the quick chats, like you talked about, like how can we go about this? And I see so much in the workplace today, like, well, that's not my job. I went into my HOA office the other day and I was asking about, a conversation. She's like, oh, it's literally like, I just want to set up my bill on auto pay.
Yeah.
You can't do it through the website. And she's like, yeah, that's just not really something I tackle. And I'm like, well, who does? Like, where else can I go? Right. And it's like, I went up to go get a coffee at a place one day, and I was getting out my $5 bill to pay for my little Americano. And he's like, we don't take cash. And I'm like, oh, well, whatever. I mean, I understand certain companies, but it's like, I don't even think he said that. It's like, we're a no cash place. That's what he said to me. I'm like, and I might just provide a follow-up suggestion, but what works really well, if you have Apple, if you have, tap on your phone, or you got a card or something.
Right.
Let's just go one step. It's like, no, we just don't take.
Or even just a little empathy, right? Like, oh gosh, you still carry cash. Guess what? We don't take cash anymore. I mean, just a little empathy sometimes. So,
Yeah.
but the way the message delivered can really.
I mean, have some fun with it. I can see you got some gray hair. You probably still use cash, but we don't take that here.
Yeah, right. That might not go over well with everyone, but I know you could take that.
Yeah. No. Jeez. Anyway, no, I think that's important. So, okay, I want to flip that around though. So this is really good, and I think everybody should go back about, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes and listen to Margaret's masterclass here on how to be the operator and how to get people engaged and be on board, because it from a visionary standpoint, it's life changing to your business, to your team, and to yourself, for yourself, when you can make these things happen. So we have a tool called Strength Scope. It's one of the tools that we distribute that we did not write. It's one of my favorite assessments. Not really a personality assessment. It's a measurement of energy. So where do you derive the most energy from while you're doing work, right? It's out of the UK. Great tool. we resell. We're a reseller for it. You can reach out at themomentumacademy.com. There's my shameless plug.
Right.
But it's one of the things I like about it is it shows where people on your team derive their energy from while they're doing their work. So it's not a competency assessment. It's not can you do it. It's what energizes you while you do it. That's what I'm interested in, because people will always default to what they get the most energy from. Our brains are actually hardwired to do that.
Interesting. Yeah.
You almost can't stop yourself from doing this. But we procrastinate on what drains us. We not consciously. We're prone to procrastinate on the things that drain us. So for me, it's detail.
I'm a
1 on the detail. I can be up to a 10. Okay. And so we have to have that. Now I know in our old organization pre-2020, Amanda was our person at the time, and she would get very frustrated waiting for me to execute on detail. Okay, because there's just maybe certain decisions that need to be made. And we find that over time, through lots of frustration, but we've worked out a system where she would just come to me and she would put an appointment on my calendar and say, Mark, I need decisions on these things so that we can move X, Y, and Z forward. It will take 15 minutes. I've got everything put together for you, because she loves the detail and she's happy to put this together in a document. Like, here's the 3 choices. I need you to just decide between in all the pros and cons. I just need you to look at that and then decide. Right? Decisiveness, by the way, happens to be one of my energizers. So I really get off.
I love that, right?
That's a great thing. So it became fun for me, right? Better for her, and we're no longer procrastinating on the detail of decision making. And man, when you can solve for that for your founder or your visionary leader or somebody further up the chain, I mean, we call it managing up in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And chunking it, right? Like, just don't schedule a 2-hour meeting to get into those details 15 minutes at a time. I often say, this is my hit list. I need these 3 decisions to keep our business moving forward. And I try to give as much notice as possible on bigger picture things, like, okay, I want you to be thinking about this. We don't have to decide today, so that there are tools that obviously, as you said, you learn to manage up. And actually it's just making the best use of everyone's skills and talent, right?
Of course. Yep. 100%. Okay. I want to flip this around before we run out of time. So if you're what would you advise the visionary from somebody who's more in the get it done role? What would you love to receive from those people, or what would you advise, those visionary founders to be able to pull and lead their team better?
Yeah, I think the visionary leader really can help their team accomplish what they need to by clearly communicating that vision. So clarity is critical, and consistency. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we hear visionaries kind of all over the place. Land on and be consistent. Stick the ending, if you will, right? And then communicate in writing, communicate in small chats, communicate in company meetings, communicate.
Beautiful.
Anytime they can help with, like, look, I don't care what else you do, but this is the thing I want to see for sure. Like, in other words, those non-negotiables, like this, in terms of deliverables, that's helpful too, right? Because if people know where the parameters are, or then they will work within that structure to deliver what needs to be done. Yeah.
I love it. I advise something similar, even just to those I'm thinking about those that are going to the field right now. We're in April as we record this in 2025, and people are hitting the fields.
Yep.
And so for some of you ag retail folks, that means that your families aren't going to see much of you for the next 60 days. And I've had a lot of lamentation type conversations with retailers in our programs who struggle with this, right? And my advice always is even to go to your families with, like, here, what's the vision?
Yeah.
Right? What are you creating for the family? Hey, this is going to be tough. You're not going to see dad or mom, a lot. It's just a lot going on. We're not going to be around for a lot of things for the next, 30 to 45 days or whatever. But here's what you have to look forward to.
That's right.
And like block that time and actually block out and take some PTO and let your people know, hey, that last week of June or that first week of July or whatever, we're going to the water. We're going to the Wisconsin Dells with the family, or we're going to the Ozarks, or we're going to wherever it is that you go, you know, and let them give them something to look forward to. But you're casting the vision. And
Exactly.
I love your input on this before we have to go, Margaret.
Mhm.
We've become big believers in actually making time to establish your core values.
Mhm.
So now, one of our core values at the Momentum Company is excellence. And so we're accountable to it. Our team is accountable to it. And when we're giving feedback, we're not saying, hey, what you did is wrong. That's not the conversation. The conversation is, what does excellence look like?
Mhm.
Right? And how is everything that we're doing matching up to that?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that gives us something, to really lean into. Another one of ours is stewardship. We define stewardship as multiplying what you've been given.
Mm.
So what was the activity that you did? Are we multiplying? Is this multiplying what you've been given? Or are we just like the parable of the talents where the guy buries it in the hole?
Right.
Right. You just took care of it. Right. But you didn't multiply it.
Yeah.
So anyway, would love your thoughts on that. I mean, that for us, core values are core and really important.
Yeah. I share a couple of those, by the way.
Yeah.
Excellence is so incredibly important in my life. I strive for it. And actually, one of my limitations, you had asked about the biggest hurdle. One of my limitations is that because of my personal work ethic, my personal direct communication and drive, sometimes my drive for excellence has been a hurdle, like with others, right? So I have to balance that. But again, back to that vision, if everybody has the same vision and understands what excellence looks like, so clearly setting whatever goals and performance objectives that you might need is really important, so people know what they're trying to strive for. What does excellence look like? I love that question.
Mm-hmm.
Another of mine and also our uh, companies is just really treating everyone with respect, and I think that's something we hear a lot about, but at the same time, that is important in our day to day interactions. But also, it comes back to what you were saying about honoring and respecting that people are whole people, and there are times when they are working through things that may not be involved in their day to day business, but their life. And how can we support and honor that person and help them be their best person too? And I'll give you an example. I've got a guy who works with me in the farm team, and this is a difficult time for him because of the loss of his father recently. And he just said, "Hey, the next 5 days are going to be tough for me, and I just, I'm going to block out some time. I'm going to be working, but I just don't want to do calls on this particular day." So honoring that, helping,
Yeah.
live that is so important. And I think just coming back around to the idea that, again, for us, farmers are at the center of everything we do, and we all believe in the importance of stewarding the land and these resources that we've been given, and that's a part of what we're trying to bring, new technology to do.
Beautiful. Keep your North Star the North Star.
That's right. Yeah.
Love it. Margaret, thanks for being on the show. It's been really cool. Really, actually, really vibrant conversation, and probably a listen to again type of episode, because there's a lot in there, guys, to go and unpack and actually implement. So
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate it. I was nervous because I don't like to set myself up as a, model leader in any way. I will suggest one book, and
yeah,
that is it's an old one, but The Leadership Challenge. And the reason I love it
okay,
is that it teaches that leadership can be learned. And so many things are about the innate leader, or,
yeah,
that you're born a leader. There are 5 specific behaviors that you can improve on to be a stronger leader. And I live by that book. I know my weaknesses and I know my strengths. And so, keeping those in check and in balance and drawing on those at the right time is so critical. So it's been delightful to talk with you. Thank you.
absolutely. Who writes that book, by the way?
Oh yeah, that's Coots's and Posner. So it's I think it's Barry Posner and James Coots's. Yeah, James Coots's and Barry Posner.
Okay,
Yep.
Okay.
And it's an oldie goldie. But again, behavioral leadership.
Mhm.
And then I would just encourage people, check out aglaunch.com
Yeah,
to learn more about what we do. And we'd love to have people learn more and be a part of it.
they need to. They need to go check it out. I think it's really, really cool what you guys are doing. So, Margaret, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Good
Yeah,
luck out there. Hope it's a good season.
yeah, absolutely.